Do you want to know which wide receivers that you should avoid in week 7 for fantasy football? Stay tuned to find out.
Don't forget, we're giving away an autographed Patrick Mahomes print direct from the NFL shop to one lucky subscriber, which we will announce live on our Sunday start sit show that we do before the games. So if you want to be eligible to try to win that, all you got to do is click the subscribe button and maybe you'll be the winner.
That's right. Every Sunday, check us out live 2 hours before kickoff. Here to help with start to sit questions. You know what? We've already talked about our must start to wide receiver. Now it's time to talk about some players that you should probably fade if at all possible, because there's better options. Chris, who's your first must sit for week 7?
Yeah, I talked about Tyler Boyd as a must start. Well, I'm going to go to the other side now with AJ Green as a must sit. I know it looks like, hey, maybe he's back, right? 8 catches last week, getting all these targets. But he goes against Cleveland, which looks like a great matchup on paper, but Denzel Ward probably going to shadow AJ Green just like he did in week 2. And when these teams played in week 2, AJ Green got 13 targets in that game. So it wasn't like he wasn't targeted. Only had 3 catches for 29 yards. I expect him to have another tough outing. We've seen this AJ Green this year doesn't play well in tough matchups. He just doesn't seem to be back to that prime AJ Green. So you put him in these tough coverage matchups and he tends to struggle. I expect him to struggle again this week.
Yeah, it's tough to know which Green you're going to get week to week. I mean, getting looks, but you're not always converting. And T. Higgins is coming on. So that's the key thing, exactly what you mentioned. And of course, with wide receiver, it's all about the matchups, right? So who's going to get Ward? Is it going to be Higgins or is it Green? Or is it going to be a mixture? So hard to tell, but also that makes him hard to trust. Now, as far as bad matchups, the Cowboys have 3 really good receivers, except that they're not quite as good without Dak Prescott, as we've seen. In this particular matchup, the toughest is going to be for Michael Gallup. He's going to get Kendall Fuller. I know Washington football team, not necessarily a defensive juggernaut, but they're not the worst defense out there. And you know what? Fuller is a really good corner. He's going to get Gallup. And you know that Gallup, his strength is running those go routes, making the big play. You know what? It's too early to say after one game that's not going to happen with Dalton, but you know, based on part of what we saw last week and, you know, based on the fact that it's not Dak Prescott, and it's very risky to start Gallup in a negative matchup for him personally. So I'm avoiding that dice roll, you know, if I have another better option.
Yeah, Michael Gallup, I talked about on the panic video. I think he's droppable in all redraft formats, but I do like him in tournaments because he's cheap and we know he can have a monster game, but in your redraft leagues, in your season-long leagues, can't trust him in your lineup. I agree. I'm going out to Jacksonville for my other must-sit, and that's DJ Chark. I know he had a pretty nice game. It's not the worst matchup against the Chargers, 11th best, versus wide receivers. The problem for DJ Chark is just the same problem it's been all year. He's only gone over 50 yards twice this year. He's had 2 games with 25 yards. He's just not getting those big, plays. He's not getting those big, high quality targets, right? Not getting those high quality targets. So even when he is getting targeted, their average depth of target isn't very deep. They're not those high quality, end zone looks. So even though the matchup on paper seems like it might be okay, I can't trust DJ Chark in my lineups. Too many times where he goes out there and just gives you like a few catches for 20, 25 yards. Can't trust him. I think you're better off benching him this week.
Yeah, it's tough to imagine. Chark was looking like almost on the verge of being a wide receiver 1 for fantasy, but raised some eyebrows actually this week talking about that whole offense, how they struggled. He particular, had a ton of targets, didn't convert. And he made a comment about how, well, it's not the coach's fault, right? He went out of his way to say it's definitely not Jay Gruden. He's doing a great job. And the receivers are doing their job running routes, and that the offense just has to click and plays have to be made. It's kind of like a really thinly veiled shot at Gardner Minshew. That doesn't spell good news if that's the case. So maybe trouble brewing Jacksonville. I don't know, but Chark is definitely not going to live up to expectations anymore, at least in the short term. It looks like. And then a guy that definitely has not lived up to expectations, Mecole Hardman. Some people thought he might kind of break out second year, and guess what? He's just doing the same thing he did last year, and that is kind of come and go. right? He'll make that big play once in a while, but he's not a receiver you can depend on. Why are we surprised anymore when he has a game like last week where he did nothing, right? Zero catches. That's what's going to happen in this offense, right? They have Kelsey, they have Hill, they have a good running game. Now they have two good running backs, and it's just too many mouths to feed. He's going to be boom or bust, same like Gallup. Well, if Gallup's droppable, I think Hardman is definitely droppable, right? It's going to be boom or bust. You're hoping for that one big play, and it's just not always going to happen. So I don't trust him. I think there's a lot of safer options I would much rather have.
Yeah, it's interesting. The Chiefs, they've been in these games where they're just in control of the game and they don't have to really use Mahomes and the passing game much. And it's kind of phased out guys like Hardman. And I agree, there's going to be another one of those games against Denver. They should have no problem just taking it to Denver. So, like you said, he's going to need to hit a home run or he's going to completely bust on you this week.
Yeah, and exactly. They're not going to need to pass it, a ton against Denver. At least I don't think so. So. All right, so those are our guys who we feel that should be on your bench for fantasy. If you have a question or you're worried about some other guys, hit us up with a comment. You can leave one right here. Of course, hit that subscribe button. We already talked about that giveaway on Sunday. Watch us every Sunday morning live. We'll answer as many start-sit questions at all positions as possible. We're here to help you win. That's our end game. All right, thanks for watching.